Wait, how long is this going to be?
It's going to be as long as it needs to be.
Can you just sit
All right.
That's on the camera now.
Are we allowed to make comments or anything?
You are supposed to be interactive. I'm going to ask a couple questions. Griffin, I swear to God.
Hey, Griff.
He's
He
right
needs
there.
you.
I don't want that 6
Mom,
people. He needs
sit in there. Sit in the chair.
What?
See you.
He needs 6. He needs 5 people. I don't need to be here.
I'm a dork.
Okay. So I shouldn't be on my phone during this?
All right, so we're all here today to talk about sustainable collective
Are
action.
you even filming?
Yes, it's going. It's ticking. Talk about sustainable collective action in Breckenridge, Colorado. This is going to be fun.
I have a clicker.
So, how would you all define collective action? Anyone?
A group with the same goals in mind.
Yes. So, collective action, basically, people united by association kind of work towards a common interest, basically what you said. So I came across during my research is there's been a lot of collective action research done at ASU. Emily Ostrom was a professor here at ASU for economics, and she saw that, she kind of like tried to disprove that theory that collective action won't work because everyone acts in their own self-interest. She said that there's other things that are more important than just self-interest, like reciprocity, trustworthiness, reputation. And another experiment done with ASU and MCC showed that collective action mostly is a result of negotiations from a few charismatic leaders. Okay, and then what is sustainability? Anyone?
You just keep things
Mom.
going. You keep things going.
Kinda, yes. So, kind of like the definition I've kind of been using for this project, and the kind of the main one is the Brundtland definition, which is basically that you can, sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without like kind of compromising the ability of future generations to meet those needs. But it's like a topic of debate among lots of professionals as to what sustainability really is. A lot of people don't like this definition. And since there isn't really a concrete definition of sustainability, you have a lot of agency in kind of making sustainability what you want it to be. So, kind of like, it seems kind of like two entities are kind of separate, but sustainability is kind of broken up into 3 spheres, which is the social, environment, economic sphere. And right in the middle is sustainability. Kind of, in order to get to that sort of like sweet spot in the middle, you kind of do need collective action to kind of make things overlap that wouldn't overlap naturally. So that's why kind of the relationship between the two. So my kind of question, my kind of goal was how can collective action be leveraged in Breckenridge, Colorado to create a culture of sustainability? So Breckenridge is a small kind of mountain town up in the Rockies. I would say like half hour from Denver, an hour from Denver. Yeah, it's really famous for its ski slopes and kind of Rocky Mountain atmosphere, and it's a really interesting little place. I kind of picked Breckenridge above other places because it's a place that I've gone basically almost every summer for a long, long time. So it's kind of a very important place. It's also a place that I want to like live in and maybe retire one day if we make it that far. So yeah, I'm kind of really concerned about its sustainability and its sort of its development. So what kind of challenges do you think is facing Breckenridge in regards to like climate change and sustainability?
Forest fires, water, forest, deforestation.
Yeah, those are a lot of big ones. So there's a whole bunch. I kind of listed a whole bunch of them here, but 2 of the big ones are the water, because rising temperatures and shorter winters and less snow melt. So it's going to hurt their economy because they depend on the winter ski season for lots of their money. But also it's a loss of fresh water too, where there's less snow. And then a big problem is sort of the economic inequity in Breckenridge. A lot of the locals there kind of have to work 2 to 3 jobs kind of to stay afloat, which is kind of hard for them to engage with sustainability and kind of sort of like to keep their local economy sustainable because it's kind of dependent on the tourism and the part-time people who live there. But there, oh, I forgot. Oh my gosh. that lake that was pictured was Lake Dillon. It is a kind of a big lake in the area, and there's a big like area of concern right now because it is down around 20 feet from like what it should be. So that's kind of prompted a lot of concern. But there's a lot of current collective action progress in Breckenridge right now. The main one being the Sustainable Breck Plan. It was put in place in 2011. Offers a lot of kind of goals for social, economic, and environmental sustainability for Breckenridge. It gives kind of action plans and a way to measure their progress. And every year they kind of do a yearly report to see kind of the direction of the town. I talked with Jessica Burley, the coordinator of sustainability for Breckenridge, and she said it's basically the main reason, like one of the biggest resources that gets Breckenridge to kind of where it is today. It kind of already has a really sustainable culture, and this is a big reason why, although it may kind of be time for updates. Another thing is High Country Conservation Center. I talked with a representative from them too. They're a local nonprofit in the Summit County, and they focus on sort of engaging the community in sustainability. They do a lot of things. The one I was most interested in was she teaches a lot of classes at local high schools or elementary schools, basically focus on encouraging sustainability and sustainable practices, and she's seen a lot of engagement from the students. It's kind of like a get them while they're young thing. And then another thing was the Vail Resorts Epic Promise, which is sort of a promise put in place by the Vail Resorts. They have a lot of resorts in the area, like the Rockies, but even like across the country. They kind of promote their sustainable practices within their ski resorts. They're kind of trying to get like net zero emissions by I think 2030. But there are a lot of roadblocks to collective action in Breckenridge. I kind of put two areas. For part of my research, I kind of described the roadblocks to collective action I saw working in Changemaker as a coordinator for coordinator of campus outreach for Civic Engagement Committee. Those kind of things you would expect, like poor communication, hasty planning, undefined goals, poor leadership, a lack of credibility, or like kind of like a lack of public awareness or engagement. But in Breckenridge, I got kind of these more specific things by talking from local representatives in the town for sustainability. This is kind of like a work hard, play hard mentality. People kind of don't work as much as they should. They want to go out and enjoy the Rockies. A big one is kind of like the tourism. Haley Yeager from the High Country Conservation said Summit County has around like 20, 30,000 people, but on a busy ski weekend, it can get up to 400,000 people there at a time. So that's kind of just a huge influx all at once. And Breckenridge itself, according to Jessica Burley, has only like 4,500 people. So it's kind of hard to make a really large scale change because a lot of the population at any time is going to be tourists who are kind of just there temporarily. There's also old or inadequate infrastructure. For example, the recycling plant for what's it called? Summit County is going to cost a couple $1 million to upgrade. There's also a decent portion of immigrants who can't speak English. Tourists generally don't behave sustainably. You're on vacation. You don't really think about recycling or anything like that. And it's hard to kind of communicate with these large corporate entities like Vail Epic Promise because their headquarters are located in Denver. So we can't really get easy working access, and according to Jessica Burley, there's kind of been a history of struggles between the town and the resorts. And then people usually don't act until it's too late. Like with the Lake Dillon, people are really concerned about it now, but they weren't so concerned about it before they realized that it was down about 20 feet. Going along for the same thing, there's some sort of key successes. So general sort of strong and supportive leadership, kind of a clear goals, laid out procedure, you're able to kind of measure your own progress. You have passionate, committed leaders, resource network, and good organization and cooperation. So in Breckenridge, they have the Sustainable Breck Plan, which has been basically essential in getting them to where they are today. And according to Jessica Burley, they have a very supportive town council and government. They recently passed the Summit Future Ballast Initiative 1A, which gave $88 million for funding for infrastructure, but also resources such as childcare and mental health. So it kind of takes the burden off of families who have to work 2 to 3 jobs to stay afloat in Breckenridge, and maybe gives them a little more time to think about more sustainable initiatives. But the local community itself is already fairly engaged and conscious. There kind of already is kind of a culture there. They also have 40 or so businesses in a resource-wide sustainability program that kind of just monitors their sustainable progress. And they do cooperate with High Country and Vail Resorts, just not as much as I think they could. And a big thing that they've seen is that they target low-hanging fruits for tourists. So you can't really get tourists to do big changes because they're there for a short time. So we'll just like get them while they're there. You gotta do like the small things. Like they have these things called break bags, where it's just a reusable bag they give the tourists, and you're supposed to use it wherever. They also try and do it so they make, or put recycling on the slopes and all these things. Try to get like all the little behaviors. So like they don't even realize they're being sustainable because they're just using resources that are already given to them. So, here's a video I had to make. Oh jeez. What is that? Oh god. It's a light technical issue.
In the coming years, Breckenridge, Colorado is going to be facing many challenges brought on by climate change. As a global problem, it can be very easy to fall into despair or inaction when faced with the problem of climate change. But in actuality, there are a variety of ways in which you can take direct and collective action to make Breckenridge a more sustainable place for everyone. First, let's look at a local level. Since 2011, the Sustainable Breck Plan has been helping put Breckenridge on the right path, but it may need revisions. As a local, you can push local officials to implement new plans for requirements, such as 100% renewable energy, a town grant for local sustainability groups, and an increased emphasis on sustainable tourism, such as getting a Breck bag in every single lodging room. Additionally, Breckenridge can partner with more outside groups, such as High Country Conservation and Vail Resorts Epic Promise. As a citizen, you can volunteer with these groups on your own time, but perhaps the town could vote on 2 to 3 local intermediaries to be dedicated to working with these organizations and forming a strong relationship between them and the town of Breckenridge. Finally, local businesses can enter into a voluntary environmental program, which is a program that ensures and monitors sustainable local business practices. Businesses that take part in this program should be listed on a website or given a sign to put at their doors. This program can be implemented through the Sustainable Breck Plan, but also can be encouraged by you as a consumer by choosing to spend your money at businesses that choose to act sustainably. Not only will this help locals be sustainable, it will also engage tourists in sustainable practices. Speaking of tourists, there are many ways that you as a tourist can also act to create a culture of sustainability at Breckenridge. A lot of it has to do with your mindset. Yes, you're on vacation, but you're also in someone's home, so act accordingly. The town has put in many resources to help you be sustainable, such as the Breck bags or recycling cans on the slopes, so take advantage of them. In addition, choose to shop and dine at restaurants that are sustainable. And when you can, ditch your car and bike around one of the most beautiful towns in the country. We know that your time in Breckenridge is short, but your impact is long-lasting. Go into your trip knowing that what you do affects a larger system, and that even by indulging in sustainable practices that seem minimal, you are helping create a culture of sustainability amongst tourists. So whether you are a local or a tourist, there are plenty of ways in which you can collectively get engaged to create sustainable change in Breckenridge, so that it can be enjoyed by you and your family for years to come.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
If you want to have a crepe.
Yeah, you should have served crepes.
Crepes. Oh, Jackie can make crepes. I'm still waiting. But so there's we've kind of like some really basic sort of things to create a better culture of sustainability in Breckenridge. But kind of what I found during my research is that I just kind of found more questions, sort of like larger scale problems that I was not sure exactly how to really address or answer. The biggest one being, how can we like navigate sustainability efforts in Breckenridge with sort of the income inequality gap between sort of the tourists and part-time residents and the locals? And how can we ensure that sustainability is equitable and it doesn't further increase the economic burden on the locals? Additionally, it's like, what kind of outreach can be done to encourage a sustainable mindset in tourists before they get to Breckenridge? And then how can the gap sort of be bridged between local Breckenridge residents and part-time residents? For that ballot initiative I had mentioned, most of the local residents were for it, but it was the part-time residents who were against it because it was going to raise property taxes and things like that. So it's kind of a bit of a divide in sort of what these two groups want. that could be really hindering towards further collective action. So, like, final thoughts. I went into this project not really knowing what to like find. I've already found they have a really great culture of sustainability already, and I'm kind of someone who usually, when I read things about climate change, I kind of fall into like sort of like doom and gloom and we're all gonna die kind of mode. But it's kind of giving me hope that even sort of like in a small town like this, people are willing to sort of put in the work and try and act more sustainably. And it's sort of giving me ideas of how I can be more sustainable in my life, but also how collective action is an important tool that shouldn't be overlooked when doing sustainability. Thank you all for coming.